Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the pen tool in Inkscape, and it can be kind of intimidating when you first start using it, so I'm going to try to not only show you how the tool works, but I'm going to show you some things that might happen that can be confusing if you're not used to using it. So first off, make sure that your settings are like mine. So click the pen tool here in your interface, and then make sure you're in Bezier mode, the Bezier path mode, this first button, and then make sure there's no shape selected here on your tool, because if any of those things are different, you're going to get different results and it can confuse you. So I'm going to go through these one thing at a time and just kind of explain as I go. The first thing to know is that when you're using the pen tool, if you left click on the canvas with the tool set like it is right now, you're basically just going to place a point or a node on the canvas. Now if you let off and you come over here to place another point, you can hold down your control key and that will lock your your path that you're going to create in 15-degree increments, I believe is what it is. So you can see how it's snapping to 15-degree increments. But if you just drag out here and hold down control, you'll get a straight line. When you decide where you want to put your next node, you can click there, but before you click, you're going to see that red line tells you where the path is going to be when you place that next node. So if I click there, notice how that line turns blue. That tells me that now that line has already been, I've committed to putting that line there. So I'm pulling out my mouse without having any buttons down, and you'll see that I can see where my next line is going to be, and if I click there it turns blue and then I get another red line, and if I come down here I can place my next one. When you're done placing nodes and you want to lock in the shape, you just double click on the end and it commits that path and it locks the whole path in. Now another way you can do that is you can right click on the last node, or you can hit the enter key, but any of those three ways will lock in the path. You double click it, you right click it, or you hit the enter key on your keyboard. Now one thing that you might see, because I told you what settings to use for the tool, but I deliberately did not tell you about this because I wanted to demonstrate what can happen. If you have a fill set on your pen tool when you're clicking out a path, what you may see is something like this. Now, what Inkscape is doing is it's showing you what the path would look like if you had completed the path. So in order to see what your fill and your stroke are set to, you can either come up here to the upper right hand corner and you'll see fill is set to black, stroke is set to black, or you can come down here in your color bar and you'll see that there's a dot on the black and there's a ring around that dot on the black. This is telling you which color has your fill and which color has your stroke. They both have black on them right now. But if I want to remove, actually first let's change the color of the fill to gray. And actually I'm going to do yellow because I want something bright where it contrasts against the black. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm just going to select a yellow color for the fill. And now you can see what Inkscape is showing you. If you have a fill set, it shows you what the path would be if you connected the last point to the first point. And I will just demonstrate that because you can add on to a path after you locked it in just by clicking the last node and then going up and clicking the node that you started on or your next node. Let's say I wanted to bring it out here and then come over to here. So you see how that Inkscape is now showing you, hey, this is the complete path. Now I'm going to back up a couple of, well, just one by hitting Control Z, but that's the idea here. If you have a fill set, when you get done clicking the path, Inkscape shows you what it would be if you actually completed the path like you have it right now. So if you click from here to there, click from here to there, it would complete the path, and Inkscape is showing you what that completed path would look like. Now, we don't want a fill on our path, so I'm going to go and turn that off, but I'm going to show you some other things that can confuse you too. I'm just going to click this X, and that's going to remove the fill. It's going to set the fill to nothing, actually. And if you look up here at the upper right hand corner, the fill is set to none, so there's no fill on this shape. Now, something else that might happen is if you don't have a stroke set, and I'm going to remove the stroke real quick because you might see this after you draw a path. You don't have a fill, and if you look up here, there's no stroke set either. So you have to have a stroke set in order to see the path. So I'm going to turn that stroke back on, and one of the ways that you can do that is by coming down here and just holding down the shift key and choosing a color. So if you click on a color, it sets the fill. If you click on remove, it removes the fill. If you click on remove while you hold the shift key down, it removes the stroke, and the shift key on a color adds the stroke or changes the stroke color. So that's how you can control your colors down here, just by using the shift key and clicking on a color, or just clicking on a color without the shift key. Another thing that you might run into that makes the stroke invisible is if you are on, let's say you have your stroke paint set, and you can see down here that I have a stroke set to black, but your transparency might be set to 0, and if that's the case, you can't see the stroke even though there's a color on it, because it's completely transparent. So make sure that you have your color, your alpha channel turned up, or your alpha transparency, opacity, whatever you want to call it, have that turned up to 100 so you can see what you're working on. And finally, something else that might make the stroke or the path invisible is if you don't have a style, or if your style is set to a width of 0, it's going to make that path invisible. Now you have a color and you have a full alpha channel, full opacity, but you still can't see the stroke because it has no width. So you want to make sure that your stroke has a width. All of those things have to be in place for you to see the path the way we've drawn it. But that's how you draw a path using straight lines. You just click out a series of nodes, and then when you get done, you double click the last node after it's locked in, or you right click it, or you hit enter, and that will give you a path, just a regular old straight line path. Now, you're not limited to drawing straight lines with the pen tool. You can draw curves, and this is where it can be kind of confusing for people that are just starting to use this. If instead of clicking and letting off and then coming over here and clicking again and letting off, if I click and hold down the mouse button and drag, notice how that circle comes out of that node. This is a control handle, and you're going to see what it does as soon as I let off of this and start to place my next node. I've let off, and now when I go to place my next node, look at that, I have a curve. That's because I set the control point for this node when I drug it out. So now I have a curve. I have the potential for a curve here in when I click my next node. The red line, just like it did before, is showing us where the line's going to go, but depending on whether or not I click and drag or whether I click and let off, I'm going to get a different kind of node here. So if I click and drag, I'm going to get another one just like I got here when I clicked and dragged. I'm going to get a control handle that comes off of it. And you can see that that control handle is still attached to that previous line that I drew. And I'm pulling out what's called a symmetrical node, or that's what I call it, because in the node editor, that's what this kind of node is called. You can see the control handles are working, they're mirroring one another. Wherever I put one, the other one goes opposite, and it's the same distance away from the node that they're operating on. So I'm just going to set that one by letting off, and now you'll see I have another curve because this handle set the control for this curve. But watch what happens if I click and let off. It locks in the previous line, but I have no control handle because I'm not dragging. So this is how you would draw curves and straight lines. And I can hold down control and click here like that and just close that one off. So you can do straight lines and curves with the Bezier pen tool. That's the point here. And that's going to come back here in a little bit when we change modes for this pen. So if I want to add another curve, I would just click here and then drag out a control handle and then let off, and then you see I get another curve. And you can just keep clicking and dragging out your shape. When you're done with your shape, you have to finish the path that you're on, and then you can double click, right click, or hit the enter key. I'm going to right click on this one just to show you that it works. And so that's how you would go about drawing curves. Now, the thing about drawing with the Bezier mode on the pen is that it can be hard to get exactly what you want, but you don't have to think of it as being permanent. You can always go in with your node tool and edit it. And a lot of people do this. A lot of people, they just click out the points about where they want them to be, and then they switch to the node tool, and then they'll make edits that way. You can still drag these nodes around and fine-tune now depending on the kind of node that you placed. See, this is one of them where I let off, so it has no control handles, but you can always add them. I showed how to work with nodes in a previous video, so I won't go into that here, but I'll just say that there's different kinds of nodes, and depending on the kind of node that you have, you'll have different abilities. See how I'm moving one side of this one control handle from this node, but the other one's not moving? So that's one kind of node. And then this one is the same way. So there's different kinds of nodes is the point here. And once you go in to edit the nodes, you can get results. Check out that other video on working with paths and nodes and the different parts of paths if you want to brush up on exactly what these different nodes do and how you can get specific ones and work with them. But the point here is that once you draw your path, you can come in and rearrange these nodes and make them look a little different. This looks very different from what I drew using the pen tool. Now there's one other thing that you can do with this node tool that I haven't mentioned either in that other video or in this one, and this is, if you're old enough and you've been using drawing tools long enough, or actually you may not have even been working in design, but you may have heard about the software called Flash, and Macromedia Flash was the was the software that I'm going to reference here. And one of the things that made it different from Illustrator is you were able to draw shapes and then drag the lines around instead of working with just these nodes. And in Inkscape, you can do the same thing. So if you have heard about Flash, it was an animation tool, but you would draw using shapes and you would just drag the lines like that. And then it would do the heavy lifting and move your control points to where they needed to be. But you could do that with Flash. Now this isn't exactly like it, but it's similar in the sense that, you know, if you have a straight line, like this one's pretty straight, but let's say I wanted it to curve, I could just pull this line down and make it curve the way I want it to. So that is another thing about the node tool. You can actually move the lines around the way you want them to be, and you can move the nodes as well. So you get the idea, right? So there's a demonstration of the Bezier mode with the pen tool. So the next one, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this path here so I don't have anything on my canvas. And the next one that we're going to look at is called the Spyro path. So that puts the pen in Spyro mode. And as the name kind of indicates, it has to do with spirals or circles or however you want to think about it. But the way this one works is you click out your first point, then you click out your second point, and when you click your second point, you're not clicking a node, you're actually putting a control handle. See how that turned into a circle? So now that's a control handle, and my next click is going to be another control handle. And you can just keep doing that, and it creates a nice even circle. And as you can see, it's very easy to draw a spiral with because of how it works. So hence the name spiral path. So I'm drawing a spiral path with it right now. When you're done, you can lock it in. I'm going to hit the enter key this time to lock it in, and you have your path. Now, what does it look like as a shape or as an actual path? Well, if you go into your node tool, you can see that everywhere we clicked, we were actually clicking a node, but each node has paths on it, or has control handles on it. So it's still editable after you're done, just like any other node is. Like if I pull this out, see what happens is it behaves a little different, but you can still edit it. And notice how this doesn't do anything, but if you wanted to change this node, I wonder if you could. Let's see what happens if we make this a corner. Yes, you can make it a corner. It still behaves a little differently because the shape is taking into consideration where the control handles would be. So it doesn't work like it's a different mode for sure, but you get the idea. You can draw spirals with it. Now, just to show you, that's not the only thing you can draw. Like if we go in and we leave that set there, we can draw S shapes with it and curves, and we can do, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. And if you lock that in, you know, the thing about this tool is that, or this mode, when you're using the pen tool, is that you get nice even flowing curves. So that's, if you ever want to draw something that has curves like that, where you can't see, it just makes everything nice and smooth. Every curve is nice and smooth. So that's pretty much how that tool works. Everything else works the same way, except for once you lock in the shape and you go to edit the nodes like I showed you, you're not going to be able to have as much freedom to change the shape. It's still going to be committed to those nice smooth curves. So we'll delete that one, and we'll move on to the next one, which is the b-spline path. And this one, once you get a feel for it, it's a way to draw circles, but you click out squares, I guess, and it doesn't just draw circles, it just draws nice smooth curves, but it does it by clicking out squares. So let me show you what I mean. If I click here and then I come over here and I hold the control down so that this is a straight line, and I click there, and then I come down here, see what's happening? The line I'm going to get is a curve, but I'm drawing a right angle. And if I click there, I get another curve. And if I click here, I get yet another curve. And when I complete this, it's very circular, even though I clicked out a square. Now, how does that affect the nodes? Well, your control handles are pretty much locked into a certain location. So you can't really move those the way it is right now. However, if you get a rough idea of what you want, like let's say I wanted to turn this into a leaf, I'm going to make this kind of an odd looking shape here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the path menu, and I'm going to convert this object to a path. And now you'll see that it's removed all of those control handles, and I have just 4 nodes here, and they all have control handles. And now I can move these around the way I want them to be. And I can even change the kind of node. If I wanted this to be a corner node, I could do that. Right now it's but you get the idea. Like, I started out with that other tool, and now I'm kind of making a leaf shape with it. So that's the tidbit for this part, is your path. After you draw your path, you can convert it to a real path, because really before it was an object. It was this it was a, for lack of a better word, it was a path object. And what we did was we changed it into a primitive path by removing all those rules and just using basic points that have, or basic nodes that have control handles on them. And now we can reshape this at will, where we were confined before. And in some cases that might be good. You may want to do that. You may want your shape to have those restrictions on it so that you can control the curvature. But then at some point you may want, hey, I want freedom to make a sharp edge or a point or whatever. You just convert it to a path. So that's the b-spline path mode. And now we have one that's called create a sequence of straight lines and segments, or straight line segments. Now at the beginning we drew straight lines, remember, with the Bezier pen. So why do we need this? Well, we also demonstrated with the Bezier pen that if you click and you accidentally drag a little bit, it's going to create a control handle, which is going to cause a curve, and you may not want that. You may want to strictly draw straight lines. And if that's what you want, then this is the tool that you want to use. Because if I click and drag on this, I don't get a control point. I don't get a control handle. I get a straight line no matter what I do. And if I lock that in and click and drag, I'm prevented from drawing a curve in this mode. That may be what you want. When you're done, you can hit enter and it locks it in. Again, you can always go to your control or to your node tool and move these around after you're done. And you can still draw curves if you want. Let's say I wanted to put a nice little curve right out here. I can edit this node and just turn it into a node that does use curves. So again, you can use that tool mode to click out a rough shape and then go into your node editor and your node tool and just edit the nodes and make them, shape them the way you want. So like if I want this corner to have control handles, I can click it, turn it into that, turn it into this, and now I've got the ability to use this as a corner node. So that is the difference basically between the pen tool in Bezier mode and the pen tool in straight line segment mode. You can't draw a curve with that tool. It only allows straight lines. And finally, the next one is called Paraxial line segments. This one basically, if you have the tool in this mode, it basically forces you to draw right angles. So if I click here and then I hold down control so that I get a straight horizontal line, you can do it in 15-degree increments with the control tool, but I'm just gonna, for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna use a straight horizontal line here, and then watch what happens when I try to drag my next. See where my cursor is? I'm trying to come over here and draw with sharp angle, but it's not letting me. No matter where I click, I'm going to get a right angle, a 90-degree angle. And this comes in handy if you're trying to draw things like floor plan layouts from top view, where you have to have squares and square right angles. This comes in really handy, and it just makes drawing those right angles a lot easier than they would be if you were trying to do this with the control key and a Bezier pen. Because one little, like I'm clicking and dragging here and it's not doing anything. It's still forcing me to draw that 90-degree angle. And just like everything else, once you're done, you would hit enter, double click, or right click on your last node and it locks it in. Another thing that I didn't cover is, when you cross over, it does the same thing. It's just basically locking you into 90-degree angles. So if you start off with a slight slope, you're going to get a tilted picture. That's why at the beginning I highlighted, make sure that that's why I made sure that when I clicked and I held down control so that I'd get a straight line, because everything else I wanted to draw, I wanted to be based on a straight line. So that is how you draw paraxial line segments. Now, what about the path itself? The shape of the path is determined. I'm going to go back to the Bezier tool here, or the Bezier mode, and I'm going to change the shape. The shape setting, I'm going to change it to triangle in. And you'll see here that we have a scale. When you activate this shape, you have a scale that lights up. That means you can adjust that mode or that aspect or that feature as well. I'm going to take this down to something, let's just do 10. Okay, so triangle in with a scale of 10, and we're in Bezier mode. So I'm going to click and put my first point there, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hold down control so I get a straight line, and then I'm going to click here, and it doesn't look like anything's happened because we haven't locked in the shape. Once you lock in the path, the whole path, then you're going to see something different. Let's hit enter. Okay, so this is triangle in. So the origin point out here is the first node, and then when you click the second node, the triangle shape works towards the point goes towards the second node, but it only shows up after you lock it in. Now, this is locked in the way it is, so let me show you the next one. If we come over here to the pen tool and I change this to triangle out, I'm going to leave everything the same, but I'm going to draw it the same way, but it's going to look opposite the way it does now. So I'm going to click here, hold down Control, and come down here, and then click it again, and then hit Enter to lock that in. You see it's exactly opposite of the other one. So triangle out draws the triangle, it spreads the triangle out away from the origin node. So that's how that one works. And you can, like I've been mentioning all through this video, you're not locked in. Once you get these shapes drawn the way you want them, this is a path object right now. And if I wanted to take object or go path object to path and then go to the node tool, you can see that I now have 4 nodes. One's up here, 3 are down here, and I can move those around. And interestingly enough, they have control handles on them. So there's another leaf shape, just using, you know, a straight line, only I had certain settings on it, and now I've got a nice little leaf shape using the pen tool with a certain setting on it. I'm going to back up one. Actually, I want to put that there so that we can see it. So there's triangle out. Let's do the next one. The next one is ellipse. So what is this going to do if I draw a straight line? Well, click there, and then I'll come down here holding Control, and I'll click here, and then when I lock that one in place, you'll see that it just draws an ellipse between the 2 points. Right? So you might be thinking, well, how would I use that? Well, there's a lot of different scenarios where you might want to draw something like this. For example, let's go into the nodes. You see this is a shape. It draws basically an ellipse, right? So let me put it back to vertical. If you spread this out, it's just like, it's basically drawing an ellipse, but it's doing it on a path. And so you can convert this into a path like this after you draw it, and you can edit it. For example, let's say we want to make kind of a curved shape. We can do that, and it was pretty easy. I didn't have to drag out an ellipse and then squish it, and then all I had to do was draw that ellipse along a path. Now you can, when your paths get more complicated, these shapes get more complicated as well. For example, let's say I wanted to draw, use the ellipse and draw a series of line segments. When I lock this in, all of those are going to be ellipses, right? So now we've got, this is locked in, but see what we have here. We have kind of an ellipse-like shape from one end to the other, but it's got straight lines in between. So there are cases where you may want to draw something that's based on ellipses along a path, and this might be the tool that you reach for to do it. So let's see what's next. We have from clipboard, bend from clipboard, last applied. Those are more advanced. You could copy something into the clipboard. Let me move these around here so that we can get a place to work. Let's I'm gonna draw something oddly shaped. Let's do a star. That's got a lot of, I'm gonna do like a 5-pointed star. Just drag that out. I need to turn it into star mode here. So I'm going to delete that one. Corners. Alright, so let's adjust the, take this down where we have something that looks like a star. Alright, so we have this star, and we'll make it yellow with a black stroke. I'm going to hit copy. Alright, I'm just going to move this over there just for now, and then I'm going to go to the pen tool, and I'm going to do from clipboard, and I'm going to click out my line segment while I hold down control, then I'm going to lock it in, and you'll see what happens. I copied this into the clipboard, and then I drew a line, and it used that line segment to put that star on it. Now that's just a simple example, but you get the idea. You can copy something into the clipboard and then paste it on a path using the pen tool, and having the shape, right, have the shape set to from clipboard. You can scale it. That determines the width, right? So at a certain point, it actually looks like it's just rotated a little bit. However, remember, this is a path that has that on it for the stroke. So if we go in here, how can we edit it? Well, I don't use this tool very much, so it doesn't really do a whole lot that to change it. It keeps the restrictions on the shape. You can see that you can flatten it a little bit, and you can adjust the width and the height, but that's about it. You can rotate it using this. So it's kind of simple, but if you have something that you want, let's say I wanted to adjust this star again, you're always free to convert it to a path by going path, object to path, getting your control points, and then moving them around the way you want them. So I guess the way I would think of this tool, if I used it very much, I don't usually work in this with this workflow. So, but you can see how you could start with a path and put a star on it, and then go in and edit your points to make a shape. So that is, I'm not going to do the other two. They're really ones that you probably, I don't know, you may have a use for them, but I can't think of a way to demonstrate, how they work, because I never really use them. So those are that's primarily how the pen tool works. Like bend from clipboard probably just does what we just did, but allows you to either bend it, or it bends it for you automatically, and then you have last applied. Well, let's try bend from clipboard just to see, because I've really never used this setting on this tool. So if I lock that in, what happens? I don't want to go into the mode, I want to go into the pen. And then, yeah, so it doesn't really, it's not really all that different. Oh, that's different. So bend from clipboard allows you to twist. Yeah, so this one may be more useful. You can see that it's not just rotating. These handles actually, this does the width, and this changes the zoom on the, because it's a star actually. So that's something you may want to test out, and just test yourself to see what it's actually going to do based on you know, what settings you use. You can see what it's doing is it's using these are settings that are actually on the star tool. So that might be something worth. I'm glad I actually went ahead and demonstrated that, because I can think of reasons why I might want to use that in the future, and I've never really looked into that particular setting before. So that is a simple overview. We didn't draw anything extravagant with them. I just wanted you to understand how the tool works and what it can do, and hopefully you've got a better understanding of the way the pen tool works when you're using it in Inkscape. Again, just a reminder, this channel, I don't have a sponsor for this channel. I don't have a membership area where you have to sign up to be a member, and I don't have a Patreon. I simply create this content for people to benefit from, and I put all the links to my designs, which are for sale on marketplaces, in the description. So if you want to support the channel, you might look at some of my designs on the products that they're on, or if you want to go the free route, feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Any of those things, they're all free, they don't cost anything, and they do help the channel. So I hope you got something out of this video and it helped you, and thanks for watching.